Now, if we can just come together very quietly, just for a moment, total silence, relax, take a deep breath, and listen to this sound. Now that is the sound of the bell of mindfulness. And the intention is to harmonize our minds and our hearts so that you and I can be in this present moment together, because there is no other moment. This is it. We are now in the present moment together. Life is moment to moment. In the Meiji era in Japan, in the mountains, somewhere around the Kyoto region, there lived a recluse hermit named Nainan. Now, Nainan had left the monastery to live a life of seclusion and solitude. In the Japanese Zen tradition, the monks, the masters who are most revered, are those who eschew temple life and monastery life and go live in the mountains as an ascetic. Now, Nainan loved to sit on the mountaintop at night, watch the moon pass through the heavens under a brilliant canopy of stars. He loved to listen to the sound of the wind whistling through the tall pines, the cedar trees on the slopes below. In the morning, Nainan always rose early for meditation. He loved to hear the sound of the forest and the babbling brook, and then wait for the singing of birds just before dawn. Nainan would go out into his garden. In the afternoon, he would go do calligraphy, write haiku poetry. In the evening, he'd play his shakuhachi, Japanese bamboo flute. And it was said that many of the animals would come out of the forest into the meadow just to hear him play, as though they were meditating. Now, Nainan loved his solitude, very important for his spiritual development, for his life. But even more so, Nainan loved people. And people would often come up from the village below, make the long journey up the mountaintop to seek his wise counsel. Many people said that just sitting in silence in Nainan's presence, they felt miraculously healed of whatever it was that ailed them emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually. And almost all of them said that they went down into one of their villages below, back to their ordinary life, that some of the biggest problems in their lives they seemed to be able to resolve effortlessly. Well, one day, a university professor came to visit Nainan, and he came to inquire about Zen. Now, this professor was an erudite figure, renowned in his field, a great scholar. He's written dozens of books, traveled all throughout the land, lecturing and teaching, esteemed by his colleagues. He was a very learned figure with all kinds of advanced degrees, both earned and honorary. He was getting on in years, so when he finally reached the hermitage, Nainan welcomed him with his warm and gracious way into his humble abode. And he placed him at the only seat in the hermitage with a small table before it. And when the professor finally caught his breath, he began to talk. He began to wax on about all the research he was doing, about some of the books he had written, about all the important academics he had met throughout Japan. On and on and on. And Nainan couldn't help but notice as he spoke, his chest puffed up, and he was quite proud of all his accomplishments, as he should be, I guess. Nainan listened. And as is the custom in Japan, he was preparing tea for his guests. And when the tea was ready, he placed a cup before the professor. And he began to pour tea. Now, the professor was delighted, because it was said that Nainan had served the best tea in the land. But Nainan kept pouring, and when it reached the rim of the cup, the professor's eyes widened. But Nainan kept pouring and pouring until it spilled over the rim, came down the side into the saucer, over the saucer, down the table, tumbled down the leg of the table onto the floor, forming a small river going out the hermitage into the garden. The professor was aghast and all agitated and indignant. He jumped back in his seat and he exclaimed, My cup, it's full, Nainan. Can't you see that it is overflowing? Nainan didn't say a word, very calmly bowed, went to put the kettle back on the wood stove, came back, again bowed, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, paused. In a very calm voice, very kind voice, he said, Professor, yes, your cup is overflowing. It is full. It is full and it is overflowing with all of your speculations, with all of your opinions, with all of your biases, with all of your prejudices, with all of your judgments, with all of your interpretations of all these things, with all of your vast body of knowledge that you have acquired through the years, and all the truths you hold to be absolutely certain. But Professor, you came here to inquire about Zen. In order to learn about Zen, you must first empty your cup. Now that is one of the classic stories in the annals of Zen literature. It's not just simply a Buddhist story, it has universal appeal. It can speak to us with its wisdom. You come here as students, first year returning. I come here as a teacher. Teachers come here, Newt's teacher, older teacher, been here for many years, staff. We come with a teacup, all of us. I can't see your teacup. It's somewhere between your mind and your heart. It's in there. I don't know. I know what my teacup's like. It's very hard to empty your teacup of all of your speculations, opinions, biases, prejudice, prejudgments about people and about things. But when you see the world through the lens of those things, it's obscured, it's muddied. The idea is to try your best to empty those. That is mindful living, being aware, at least the first step, being aware. I have this prejudice, I have this bias, I hold this opinion. Be aware. Think about ways when you come in here to morning meeting, you go into your classroom, the sports field, study theater, music. How can you enter that place with an empty cup? Another story. In 9th century China, there was a great Chan master. His name was Dizang. Now, Chan Buddhism is what later becomes Zen Buddhism in Japan. So Dizang had this student, and his name was Fayen. And one day Dizang said to his student, he noticed his student putting on his traveling robe and lacing up his sandals, putting a satchel over his shoulder, and he had his walking stick with him. He said to him, Fayen, where are you going? Fayen was adjusting the strap on the satchel, and he looked at him and said, why, Master, I'm going around on pilgrimage. Master Dizang just was silent. He stroked this long, thin beard protruding from his chin. And he just paced, for hours it seemed, around the meditation hall. And then he turned to his disciple, Fayen, and said, what is the purpose of pilgrimage, Fayen? Fayen was very patient, ready to go, turned to him and shrugged, said, I don't know. And at that moment, Dizang turned and said to his disciple, not knowing is closest. Not knowing is best. Not knowing is most intimate. And at that moment, they said, Fayen was enlightened. Another classic Zen story. Not the mind of not knowing. You know, we've all been around people that are know-it-alls. It's a little bit tiring. You know, you start to see them going down the hallway or wherever it is, and you try to duck in another room. You know, somebody that knows everything. They've done everything you've done, and they know more about it than you do. And you know they probably didn't even do this thing before, but they know it all. How can you learn when you know everything? Yeah, you have acquired valuable knowledge through your 14 to 19 years. We as teachers have acquired valuable knowledge, but the point of the story is simply not to just empty your mind of all of our valuable knowledge and some of our insights. It's to hold that knowledge loosely in one hand. To hold it loosely or move it to one part of the brain, the side of the mind. And then be open and receptive to new learning experiences and possibilities. And then you say, well, I was told this about that person, this class, or this coach, or this experience, or those people, but maybe that's not true. I've got this knowledge, these opinions over here, but I'm bringing in new information, and I'm bringing it together. I'm thinking, wow. So you've got to remain open. Another way to say it in Buddhism is beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, this is really important, there are many possibilities. It's as wide as the sky. It's inexhaustible. You approach every day as a beginner. But in the expert's mind, there are few. Now, an expert may be talented and skilled in classical music or an engineer or whatever they are, but if they think of themselves as an expert, they're in a tunnel. It's dark, there's no light, there are walls, no new information, knowledge, possible experience can happen. But in the beginner's mind, all kinds of things are happening because it's an open and receptive heart and mind, clearing space within to learn. These things sound easy, but they're hard. But think about it. Empty teacup. What's in your teacup? Hopefully what's in there is at least sweet tea and not the bitter tea of anger and resentment and all those things. It's filled, but what's in your teacup? What do you need to empty? What are the lenses through which you're looking at the world and fellow students and so forth? What's in your mind? Mind of not knowing, beginner's mind. Little spiritual things for you to think about. So periodically throughout the year, I'll have some stories and spiritual ideas for you. But this morning, maybe I'll introduce myself quickly. There are 377 of you returning, so you know who I am. You're looking at me through some lens, right? Some of you know me better than others. Then there are 200 that I don't know. So I'm Mr. Ganung, or Reverend Ganung, the chaplain at Taft. And like all of your teachers, I do some coaching. I work in dormitories in Congdon. Where are the Congdon girls? Are they out there? They're not here today? Okay. Ganung girls. So, and I teach religion and philosophy, naturally, religion and philosophy courses in the GSS, Global Service and Scholarship Department. But like everyone else, I'm wearing many hats, doing lots of different things. But one of the important things that I do here is organize morning meeting. The morning meeting has to be distinguished from assembly. Assembly is on Wednesday and Saturday, same time, same place. Very different. Announcements, skits. It's a kind of a raucous crowd. It's fun. It's all kinds of things. There's things you got to, great things. A cappella group singing and so forth. But when you come in here on Tuesday and Thursday, it's a different hat. This is our sacred space. And as a chaplain, I guess I preside over it. Like Mr. Voulgaris, I know up on the football field, 2 hours with him, he's in charge, and even the coaches are afraid to cross him up. Well, this is sort of my football field too. This is our sacred space. So when you're in here, I ask, when you enter a Hindu ashram or a Buddhist zendo or a mosque, you take your shoes off. I don't know why we don't do this in churches and synagogues very often. You take your shoes off. It's an honor. I don't want you to take your shoes off literally, but metaphorically, when you come in here, have that mindset. You're taking your shoes off. You're getting in touch with your highest self. This is all part of educating the whole person. And what we look at in here, in a broad way, is ethical, moral, and spiritual principles in a very broad sense. And we do that through music, through the arts, through talks and presentations, maybe through dance, and a whole range of ways. But we're looking to ask the big questions, not come out here with answers, the big questions of life. Fayan, the deeper story, meaning also with Fayan and Dizang, is that he's on pilgrimage, and you are on a pilgrimage. We are all on one through life, but through Taft. It's a journey of learning, mentally, spiritually, many ways of learning. You're pilgriming, and the big questions you're asking. When he asked that, what's pilgrimage? What he was really asking him to think about, what's the purpose of your life? Where are you going? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why is there so much suffering? Why is there so much struggling in this world? What's the best way for me to live? Those are the big questions. Those are the questions the Zen master was really asking his disciple. And he said, I don't know, and that's an honest answer. You don't know. Be open, be receptive, learn from one another, embrace one another. Let's build a community together here that we really care about one another. I know we're on the road to doing that. We're off to a great start this year. So, morning meeting. Come in with your shoes off metaphorically. Come in lifting up your highest self. And what we have here, we usually have seniors speaking. We have people like me, teachers speaking occasionally. And then we have outside people. So it's a combination of things. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you come in with an empty teacup and a mind of not knowing, a beginner's mind. Okay, God bless. Have a great day. See ya.